From Dal to Hay, Mesillas are moving at a brisk pace. You saw last week the midah of Zehirus, which means they define here as vigilance, but we prefer to define it as a business plan. The first step in Avodas Hashem is to have a clear plan of what is good, what is my goal, where do I want to get to, where am I now, and then figure out, once I see where I am now, and which actions I'm doing fall into the good category or into the bad category, I'll know how to get to my goals. That was explaining what is this idea of Zehirus. Perek Dal is about how does one come to acquire Zehirus? What does one do in order to motivate oneself to be a Zohir? And the fifth parak is about what are the things that detract from Zehirus, what takes away from it. So when it comes to what are those things that allow a person to become a Zohir, the first thing is learning Torah. As the Brisa that this Sefer is based on says, Torah brings Lidei Zehirus. That's the first thing. The person has to learn Torah, and that will bring him to Zehirus. The second thing that brings to Zehirus is a person contemplating the seriousness and how pressing it is to be an Oved Hashem. How important is it that I keep Torah mitzvahs, right? Because we're defining obviously our goal as being Er L'Chayin, as being a good Jew, as fulfilling our obligation to Hashem. And we're going to analyze our actions now, which actions are bringing us there, which ones are not bringing us there. So how do we motivate ourselves to do this? By seeing how important and how essential Avodas Hashem is. Once we see how chashuv, how central it is to our lives, then automatically we're going to want to do that. If a person says, if you do A, B, C, and D, you will make a lot of money. Oh, that's very important to me. If a person tells you if you do A, B, C, and D, you will have a great relationship with your spouse, that's very important to me, and I'm going to try to do that. So first we have to realize how important it is to reach our potential in Avodas Hashem, and automatically we'll gravitate towards doing it. So very interestingly, the Mesillas Yesharim breaks this up, meaning it's kind of PR, right? He's trying to convince us that this is very important, right? So he breaks people up into three categories, and I'll let the audience decide which category they fall into. The first one is called the Shalmei Hadas, people who are, how does he translate it here? People who are truly wise. Shalmei Hadas really means being shalem in das. I guess, truly wise, a person who is an intellectual, a bar seichel. Then he has pchusim mehem, people who are lower than they are. It's not mamish, the intellectual shalmei das. People who are a bit more, physical and less principled. Then he has the masses. So he's pitching this to these three groups of people, and everyone in this room, or everyone in Klal Yisrael, falls into one of these three categories. Shalmei Hadas, they're the truly wise. The ones who are a darga, a level lower than that. Then you have the masses. So how does he? What's the breakdown? For the Shalmei Hadas, what's the biggest pain? What's the biggest worry for a person, for a real intellectual, a very principled person, that he does not reach perfection? Right? A person wants perfection, whatever he's doing. And his biggest fear is not to reach perfection. And if a person doesn't take the Torah mitzvah seriously, he'll be lacking perfection. The true perfection we know is getting close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is true perfection. What true perfection is success in business. That's true. It's not true. That's very important. It's not true perfection. True perfection is in the service of Hashem. And if a person realizes that's the only thing that it's really kedai to go after, then it's and what gets a person there is Torah mitzvahs. So of course he's going to make his business plan right away. But it's a very high darga. We see who the Mesillas Yesharim is talking to. A person will be motivated by realizing that Avodas Hashem is the only true perfection, and all of a sudden he's going to he'll throw himself into Zehirus because he realized that's the only way to get there. Very high darga. That's the truly wise person. For the pchusim mehem, and this also is a darga, what he calls a level lower than the truly wise, I think is beyond many of us, won't really motivate us, but we'll speak it out anyway. So he says, what is one of the hardest things for a person to deal with in, let's say, a social setting, when it comes to his friends? And we'll be honest, it's when a person sees that his friend is getting covered, is getting honor, for something that he feels he excels in, just as much, if not more, than my friend, and they're giving him the honor. It hurts. I should be getting an honor. I should have gotten Shlishi. I worked much harder than that guy did. I should have gotten the Haftarah. I should have, gotten mentioned. And that is one of the hardest things for a person to deal with, is when he feels someone else is getting the covet that's due to him. We have to realize that after 120, right, it's not just everyone sitting in the same cubicle in the world to come, but there's going to be corner offices with a really nice view, then there's going to be the corner office with whatever, a wall, then the apartment, there's a building across the street, and there's going to be the cubicle. And if a person sees that his friend, who he feels he's better than, has a higher level in the world to come, that's going to cause him pain. Says the Mesillas Yesharim, let's use that kina, that jealousy, as a motivating force for Avodas Hashem. It's a big chiddush. That's what he says. He quotes the Chazal that says that everyone is burnt by his friend's chuppah. You see, a person goes to his friend's chuppah and he gets jealous. Why does he get jealous? Right? So he says, for the Shalmei Hadas, for those truly wise people, it's not because of kin, not because he's jealous, but when a person's getting married, you see like the whole life ahead of them, the whole potential. And a person, I've been married for 5 years, for 10 years, for 20 years, and what have I done? A person sees that, he realizes he's lacking in the shleimus. So for the Shalmei Hadas, it's not a jealousy thing, it's that I see now this person and his whole future ahead of him, and with a shleimus, and I'm lacking in that. For the Pchus Mehem, for the regular people, it's a din and jealousy. A person sees that, what he has ahead of him, what have I done with that, and he could use that as a motivating force to get him more into the Torah mitzvahs. That's the Pchus Mehem. For the people, for the masses, even below that, he says we have to and this I think is most practical for all of us, to focus on the din v'cheshbon. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's din, the judgment that Hashem has for all of us. I'll tell you a story, which obviously doesn't bring here. There was a Maisa with the Vilna Goyim, the Gra, was at an inn. And sat down next to him, this big Bulvanish Yid, a real ruffian. And the Gra knew the guy was Jewish. Whether he knew it because he knew it or he knew it because someone told him. So this person starts eating without making a bracha. Not a from person. He's a Ratzef, he was a murderer, he was a Ganav, and he was a famous personality. And then Drusoy. So the Gra says to him, you should know that you're going to get punished because you didn't make a bracha. Hashem's going to punish you. You didn't make a bracha before you ate. He says back to him, says, Rabbi, you think that's the biggest affair that I have? Is that I didn't make a bracha before I eat? I killed people and I've stolen from people and I've done other things and this is nothing. So the Gra looks at him with his piercing eyes and he says, for every affair you do, there's going to be a din v'cheshbon. So the Maisa finishes off like a Hasidic Maisa kind of that, and he was choser b'tshuva, which maybe he was. But the point is, what the Gra was telling him was that whatever you think, however many aveiros the person's doing, and he thinks, every single not making a bracha, every bracha not kavanah, everything has a din v'cheshbon. We realize how serious everything is and how much is at stake. So a person realizes, I better make my business plan because I don't want to get in trouble later on. He quotes, Mesillas quotes a Gemara in Chagiga that Umagid la'adam ma'aseichai. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, after 120, the Bezdin Shamayla is going to tell a person about all his speech that he had his whole life. Says the Gemara, Afilu sicha kalash beit ish le'ishto magidim loy la'adam b'shas hadin. Even a small little idle chatter between man and woman, man and his wife, is going to be held accountable for after 120. Now, I'm not saying that when you go home today, don't talk to your wife. I'm not saying that, right? I'm not saying, and like you're going to come home and you're going to start like measuring your words. You're like, what's wrong with you, honey? Like, well, what's the matter? So you have to be normal. But the concept we're trying to pull out, that for everything that we think is innocuous, we think is not a big deal, there's a din v'cheshbon on everything. And he goes through a bunch of stories, we'll call, throughout Tanakh, where we see that with the big tzaddikim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu had this very strict din. And we're supposed to dan a kal v'choyim, we're supposed to say all the more so how that applies to us. So we have from yesterday's parasha, Avraham Avinu, he was Ahav l'koyne, he was beloved by Hashem. Avraham Ohavi, he's called the pasuk in Yeshaya. And what happened when he said Bama Eida? How do I know? Ki or Rishana, that I'll get Eretz Yisrael. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, because you questioned what I was promising you, therefore your children were going to go into exile, be subjugated by the Mitzrayim. So for that one question that Avinu asked, look at that punishment. You see the din that Kadosh Baruch Hu has with the tzaddikim. It goes on to Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov says, Al Shechara Apag Rachel, She'omer Loi Havali. Banim Rachel was obviously very distraught. She didn't have children. She tells Yaakov, Havali Banim. But you have kids with Leah, Havali Banim, it's not fair. You didn't daven for me, it's not fair. And he says a very stark thing back to her. It's not my fault, my Hashem. You know? And because of that, Kadosh Baruch Hu said to him, Kach oimna samu'uka. Is this how you answer a person who's in pain? Chayecha shebanecha oimdim lifnei b'na. Your sons are going to now be subjugated to her son. They're going to have to stand in front of her son for din, referring to Yosef. So we see that for one statement, one insensitive on his level, obviously, one insensitive statement that Yaakov made, look at that punishment. For Dinah, Yaakov did not want Dinah to marry Esav. Right? He was afraid when he had this epic confrontation between Yaakov and Esav. So Yaakov was afraid that Esav was going to marry Dinah, so he put her in a box. Like we had in this Pasuk's parsha, I'm going to put Sarah in a box, Yaakov puts Dinah in a box, and try to avoid her from marrying Esav. And there was, on some level, a teviyah, a taina, on Yaakov. Why did he do that? Because maybe she could be machzor in betshuva, which is a separate discussion. So you marry your daughter off to a Russia, because she'll be machzor in betshuva, right? It's a big shiloh. Anyone who's in shidduchim now, with the kids, you have to know that there's a mefurish chazal. Look for the biggest Russia, right? And marry your daughter off to him. So there's different explanations. There is a controversial Torah Tamima. The Bali Musar say that he locked it too tight. He was too into holding her back. It should have been a struggle. He should have realized my daughter's a tzaddikus, and she has the potential to bring him back. But it's hard. But I can't do that. So he locked it a bit too tight. Either what happened. So Hashem said to him, if you're not going to want to marry her beheter to a Jew, so to speak, she'll be married to a guy. That's what happened with Schreck. So for that dakisdik, slight on his level aveira, look at the punishment. Look how stark the din was. Yosef says he did a bit too much hishtadlus. Ki im zichartani itcha. If you remember me to Parah, says Yosef when he was in jail in Mitzrayim, he got 2 more years. He had to stay in jail because he said 2 words that on his level was a lack of bitachon. 2 years in jail, and he goes on and on. He gives different examples. David called the Divitor Zemiris. So he was nichshel in something, and Michal was Merchiach David. Michal, David's wife, gave him rebuke that he was dancing in front of the Aron, like she felt like a person, like a Hamayin Amnik, like a regular person. It wasn't bekavadik for the king, and she died without children. So there's a lot of we see from all these stories in Tanakh that the din is so stark and so strong with the tzaddikim as well as us, and that serves as a motivating force for us for the Zehirus. So of course we had a project from last week, right? To sit and think about what is the good, what is my goal in life, and hopefully also thought about where am I holding now, thinking about 1 or 2 things, 1 aspects in my life to see if it falls into the category of good or the category of bad. I'm not going to take a survey now who did and who did not do that little project. But whoever didn't do the project, we have to ask ourselves, why didn't we do the project? 7 minutes in 7 days. What is it? How many is that minutes per day? It's nothing. It is not any investment of time, any significant investment of time. We spend much more time on gornishkeit and narishkeit, right, and nothingness. Why couldn't we find 7 minutes to do this little exercise that will change your life as well as your afterlife? Why didn't we do it? It's because of Perek Dal and Mesillas Yesharim, because we don't really understand the seriousness of what we're doing. A word of Lashon Hara, the big challenge in religion is that if you run a red light, chas v'shalom, you get into an accident, the consequence is right there. Or you're driving the 95, right? You're going to see accidents every day, it appears. Right? So you see, you see that if you drive carelessly or aggressively, you see what happens, right? So it's much easier for us than to drive more responsibly. But if I miss shacharis, I don't have kavanah to make brachas, I don't see what happens. That's all the more so the imperative to focus on these things and realize there is a din. there is a cheshbon, and every small, we're about to bench now. If that's done without kavanah, there's going to be a consequence. Without Perek Dalet of Mesillas Yesharim, Perek Aleph and Beis and Gimel are not going to get us that far. So it's a necessity for us to realize and to focus on these things and to learn up the Mamar Chazal and discuss how Schreck did this. That is Perek Dalet. Perek Hey he describes 3 things that detract from Zehiros. 3 things that pull us away from Zehiros. The first one is, he calls Tipul V'Hatirda. Involvement and preoccupation with this worldly matters. Right? The Yetzer Hara is very smart, and the Yetzer Hara gets a person, will hack technology again, to have a smartphone, and with that smartphone, whenever he has a free moment, to check what's going on in the news. And one Rabbi used to call the olds. Not the news, the olds. It's the same thing. There was a murder here. You can take the news from 10 years ago and then just copy paste it, just change the names. And although now it's getting quite interesting, maybe it's not like that. But that's the case. But the biggest distraction from Zehiros is Tipul and Tirda ben Yonah Olam Hazeh, getting involved, too much involved in this worldly matters. Now we all have to make a parnasa, but there's a gvul, there is a point. How much do we get involved in that? Can we, so to speak, cut corners responsibly and create more time for us to think? What brings to Zehiros? What brings to this business plan? Torah. And all these distractions take us away from Torah. If it takes away from Torah, we're not going to be able to come to Zehiros. If a person involves himself in Torah, that will awaken within him a desire to have this here, to make the business plan. If a person gets involved in distractions, he's not going to have time to do that. The Chazal tells us, we're in Kedushin, Barasi Yetzer Hara, Barasi Torah Tavra. We have this machal, this disease we'll call the Yetzer Hara. What is the medicine for that disease? It's Torah, it's learning. So imagine a person goes to the doctor and he has a condition, and the doctor tells him, take this medicine, and the person decides, I have a better medicine to take. It's a foolish person. So the Chazal are telling us the medicine, the antidote for the Yetzer Hara, for us to get involved in Torah, which would lead to Zehiros. It is Torah itself, is learning. That's what we have to do. So the first thing that detracts from Zehiros is our preoccupation with other things that are not really necessary. So that's the first thing we have to cut out. He calls that the easiest of the 3. In this day and age, I think it's quite difficult. The second one is Schreck v'Latzen, is lightheadedness. People make jokes, a jokester. That is the second thing that detracts from Zehiros. Why? Because anything important in life requires what he says, simas slave, requires being focused, being aware, paying attention. Late Sonis has a koyach, has the ability, has the power to make, it's like a shield, you put oil on the shield, any arrow that comes just falls right off. You could take, a person can make the most important, serious comment, make a joke about the shirt that he's wearing, right? Or he has, I don't know, he has something hanging off his face. All of a sudden, when he starts laughing, any point the guy was making is finished. Late Sonis is an unbelievable koyach to take anything that is chashiv and bring it down to the ground. It's worth nothing. A person can be giving a Mussar Shmuz, making a great point, with one word of Late Sonis, you can lose the entire message. That's the second thing that detracts from Zehiros, because it's not so important. You're gonna sit down, you're serious, you're gonna go home, you're gonna sit down, you're gonna write down about your life, what your goal is. That's quite pathetic, no? Come on, go outside and do something, check your phone, check the emails. It's more chashuv. So that's a big issue. The Schreck and the Late Sonis. The person has to realize that this is a very important endeavor, and if they make fun of you, he says you can make fun of them. Usually, we're not into gaiva or into looking down upon people, but he says that if they're going to be malig on you, if they're going to make fun of you, feel free to make fun of them. That's what he says. The third thing is chevra. This is crucial. At the Rambam, in Hilchos Deis, Perek Vav Alach Aleph, in yeshivas you always hear about this Rambam, that a person is ma'od nimshach achar chaveiro. A person is very much pulled after his friends. And if he's surrounding himself with people who are not machshiv, they don't think this is such an important endeavor, he will necessarily be pulled after them and also not be machshiv, not really think this is an important endeavor. And when they make fun of him, he should make fun of them. And it's important to surround oneself with a chevra who will be supportive and who are into this endeavor as well. These are the 3 things that detract from Zehiros. It's the distractions of this worldly matters. It's the having that attitude of leitzanis, of lightheadedness, and making fun of whatever is chashuv, and it's the chevra. A person must surround himself with a chevra, with people who are going to support him in his avodas Hashem. The person has to take it seriously. There's a place to joke around, it's fine, but not when it comes to avodas Hashem. A person must be serious, and a person has to make sure he leaves aside time to contemplate these ideas. And with that, we should all be zoiche to internalize this concept. So, what is going to be our Kabbalah for this week? What is going to be our little project? Everyone, we should all find 3 minutes a day. Free up 3 minutes a day to think about this. Take 3, when you're about to check, when you have downtime, right? And you know it's downtime. The natural tendency is just to take out the phone. I'm the same way. Just take, when you have nothing to do, well, what do? You have this gewaltige machine that you can get to anywhere in the world with, right? There's so many interesting things out there. There's a Yetzirah for information. There is a Yetzirah for information. I mean, I'm interested in hieroglyphics. So I'm going to spend 2 hours looking at how the Egyptians used to write things on the walls, right? there is such a Yetzirah. Oh, that's interesting. It is interesting, right? But then a person has no time to ever think for himself. But our tendency, when you're walking somewhere, right? Just take your phone and look and see what's new, right? Take 3 minutes, chop yourself, and take 3 minutes and realize that I don't have to do this. Let me think about the Mesillas Yesharim. Let me just think about, again, forget religion. It'll benefit your relationships. I think in Perek Dalet, it's very lofty for us. His motivation is the world to come. So aren't you going to feel bad when your friend is sitting on top of you in the world to come? Does that motivate anyone here? I would think not. If I'm wrong, I ask you for mechila. But I would think that that's too far for us to think, right? But let's at least start shaloi lishma and be talking shaloi lishma ba lishma. There's no question about it. Take the closest person in your life. If you would spend 3 minutes a day thinking about that person, that relationship, I have no doubt it'd be a better relationship. So let's start shaloi lishma. Or let's say how are you perceived in your office? We're all from Jews. How am I perceived in my office? Right? Think about that. Take 3 minutes a day that you're about to go on the machine. You're about to go on it. Chop yourself. Take 3 minutes to think about relationships, how you're perceived out there in the world, and dwell on that for a few minutes. Every day, Sunday through Friday, 6 times a week, 18 minutes. Is that a lot? 18 minutes for the week. That'll be our project for this week. Okay? Okay.